Carlos Nelson with Cascade Media Group, and today we have the president, CEO, founder of the Kansas City Defender, Mr. Ryan Sorrell.
Sorrell.
Well,
Yeah.
uh, Ryan, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I appreciate it. It's an honor to be on here.
Ryan, tell our audience a little bit about yourself, and then I want you to talk about the Defender. And when I say that, go back to kindergarten and tell them what schools you went to, some of the mentors or people that influenced you, and then we'll go into how you came about with the Defender. Thank you.
Definitely. Yeah, well, originally my family moved around quite a bit because my dad was in the army. And so my family, like my brother was born in Japan, and my family moved around quite a bit until when I was 2, we moved to Michigan, to East Lansing, Michigan. And I lived there until I was about 8. And then when I was 8, I moved to Lee Summit, a suburb out here in Kansas City, and lived there all the way through high school. And for anybody who doesn't know, I'm sure most people do, but for anybody who doesn't, Lee Summit is like a mostly white area. And so most of the things I did, I was like the only black kid, but I played basketball. And so that was where I was able to find communities of black people, was mostly through basketball.
You were out at
Um,
least Summit North, right?
yeah,
All
yep.
right.
Yeah, I played basketball there. I was also on the debate team and I was in the orchestra also. But I graduated and went to which precursor to all that, I definitely dealt with a lot of racism when I was in Lee Summit, which I think was part of what helped like started developing my consciousness, I would say. And I also had my parents, they always had a lot of Black history books and like films, like the Malcolm X film or Roots or The Color Purple, like all these different types of films and books and stuff. My parents always had that in our house, and we always would take time to like watch some of those things as a family. And so that was kind of just part of my upbringing. I also had a cousin who gave me this book called Countering the Conspiracy to Destroy Black Boys when I was in 5th grade. And he was like a super pro-black, like uh very, very, very revolutionary black person. And I always would talk, every time I would talk to him, he would give me a different book or something, or just kind of talk to me about the system basically. And I didn't understand everything back then, but as I got older, I started to understand more of what he was talking about. And once I graduated, I went to school at Loyola University of Chicago. I started school in 2014, I think it was, and that was pretty much like right after Trayvon Martin had got killed. And so that was my freshman year. Was Trayvon Martin got killed. My sophomore year, Mike Brown, and then Sandra Bland. All of that happened while I was in school, and so that was also very much a part of my political awakening, and just generally being in Chicago, which is a very politically revolutionary, radical city. Um, but in school, Loyola is also again kind of like a PWI, predominantly white institution, and uh, just being in school, I started to meet a lot of different types of people, but I also got connected to a lot of people in the Arab community, like Students for Justice in Palestine, and they also helped me learn more about my own history, pretty much. And so, um, yeah, that was like a very transformative time period for me. And so I was in school from 2014 pretty much until 2018, and then I graduated. I moved to DC for a year. I did an internship at a a black think tank called the Joint Center for Political and Economic Studies, where they had me working on and looking into how artificial intelligence is gonna impact the black community, they were specifically looking in terms of like jobs and stuff like that, but I was more interested and I'm still more interested in a broader way of how AI is going to impact Black people. And then I did a second internship at a PR agency called Fleischman Hillard, which is one of the the biggest three PR agencies in the world. And then I finally got my first job back in Chicago doing like web development and web analytics at a PR agency. And I was doing that for 2 years until 2020 happened. Of course, the pandemic, and then the uprisings broke out. And when the uprisings broke out, I was just temporarily staying with my parents back here in Kansas City, and I still had my apartment, and I was still working in Chicago just remotely when the uprisings and everything happened. But then I ended up getting so ingrained into all the protests and stuff. And a few of my friends and I, we started to help lead a lot of the protests that were taking place here in Kansas City. And people started asking us if we were like an organization or a group, and we weren't technically a group, but me and my friends who were helping lead the protest, we actually used to have a rap group that we call Black Rainbow. And so we just kind of changed the name of the rap group to be a community organization. And so I was I quit my job in Chicago and moved back here and I became a full-time community organizer for a year between 2020 and 2021. And that was when I just started to see, like, every time we would do a protest or anything else, we would always have to go to these white media outlets and ask them to cover it. Or if they did cover it, they would do it from a very problematic framing. And so that was just when it became very clear to me that we needed more radical news, and especially news that could reach young people. So that's what led me to start the Defender in July of 2021.
All right. Tell me how you came up with the tag and the name Defender. What was that
Definitely.
process like, or did it just off the top of your head?
I've always admired a lot the Chicago Defender, like the history of the Chicago Defender, especially when it was more radical. And I did like a lot of research on them when I was in school, and I did a lot of research on the underground press movement. Um, and so that was like the inspiration pretty much for the name, was directly from the Chicago Defender, and wanting to like, I've probably reread their biography on the Chicago Defender probably at least like 4 or 5 times, because to me it's like a blueprint of what our community needs.
Tell me this. Well, not tell me, because we talked about this off camera. Let our viewership know the things that your organization does, because I had the misconception that you just were a newspaper.
Definitely, definitely. Yeah, we actually refer to ourselves, we do produce news and information, but we view ourselves more as a community organization. And that was also inspired by the history of the radical Black press, because a lot of people don't know that historically in the Black community, like Black news outlets in the Black press were the second most influential institution in our communities behind the Black church. And they actually had like physical presences in our community. And so we refer to ourselves as a community organization, and editorial and writing is only half of what we do, whereas the other half is what we call community programs or community survival programs, pretty much, which is, of course, inspired by the Black Panther Party. And we have 3 subcommittees under that community programs. The first one is called mutual aid. And so we have a free clothing program where we have bins set up in Black businesses and organizations throughout the city that people can drop off gently used or new clothes at. And we help distribute them to Black people who need them. We also do what we call grocery buyouts, where we'll just raise money, usually through our online platforms, and then we'll pull it out into direct cash, and we'll go to like Wild Woodies or Sunfresh on Prospect, or we've gone to Walmart on 40 Highway, or anywhere where any grocery store mostly where there's mostly black people, and we'll just stand at the grocery checkout line and give direct cash to black people while they're checking out at the grocery line. And so that's just two examples of things we do in the mutual aid committee. But we also have an arts and culture committee where we for Juneteenth we rented out the Truman, the major event venue, and we had all local artists, hip hop artists perform. So we put on an actual full hip hop concert. We also have hosted open mics before. We hosted one at Equal Minded Cafe. And I think about 2 weeks from, or a week and a half from now, we're actually having a young Black writers social where mostly high school and college age young Black writers from across the city are going to be gathering. We'll have a panel, and it's just going to be a place for them to have community pretty much and to meet one another. So that's our arts and culture committee. And then we also have a political education committee that is focused on consciousness raising pretty much both within our organization and the broader community, where we talk about things like abolition, which is for us the abolition of the prison industrial complex, and other just issues that are impacting the Black community. It could be something that just happened last week. Sometimes it's current events, but other times we might watch like an Angela Davis interview or something like that. So that's the political education committee, and all of those are under the broader community programs umbrella of our organization.
Sounds y'all a little different from Cascade Media, but we're on the same page with diversification. Don't just try to label us as print news or video news or politics, because we're all over the board. And I haven't seen any organization, especially run by young people like yourself, that had this consciousness that you have. And you know how I told you I was like wiping y'all off the board, like Kansas City Defender. What the hell is that? But hey, bro, your stuff is in. See my lights in the back? Y'all got some lights on this other side. You just can't see because, from my perspective, I had to take one of the major movie studios mantra: "A Star Is Born," and the Kansas City Defender, and the things that you're doing with our young people, and it seems like you're able to actually put it together, weave these, and it's very hard in our community, and it's very hard without financial support. Talk to our audience about what if they're interested in furthering the movement and would like to support you and what you're doing, and as what Cascade Media, what the Kansas City Call is doing. We have to understand words are nice, but when you write that check or you give that Benjamin Franklin, that is what moves the needle forward. Run it down on how you see our community participating from a financial end on worthy organizations and causes.
Definitely. I mean, I think just like you mentioned, I think it is absolutely essential for the survival of our organizations because, again, like we have to compete with the Kansas City Star, who has millions and millions of dollars. We're competing with Fox 4, KCTV5, KSHB, KMBC, in addition to the national news media organizations who we also view as our competition. So CNN, New York Times, Washington Post, they have tens of millions of dollar budgets that they get to work with. They have staffs of, the Star probably has a staff of at least 20, 30 people. And our staff, I'm the only full-time staff person. and we have a part-time managing editor, and we have to compete with these staffs that have 20 and 30 people. So um sorry if you hear the
No, I
siren.
want to interrupt you on that. You know, we just was on KCUR 2 days ago, and I wish we had some staff. They they had 2, 3 people waiting on us. They had uh everything down to all the I's and T's crossed. Those were salaries. They had the receptionist, they had the two, and then brought us into the studio. And our community, they do not, I don't think, they look at any of that. They compare you with all of those news outlets and companies that you just said, and well, why haven't you? But they don't look at why haven't they supported you financially?
Hmm.
You know, and I call them all out. The NAACP, the Urban League, all of them. Yes, it's nice to be on your shows and all of that, but you have established financial relationships with corporate America. And I feel that they have a fiduciary responsibility to support companies like Cascade and yours, especially when you running around here talking about you you speaking for the Black community. You might be speaking for the Black community, but what are you putting back in the Black community from a financial standpoint? And I have a big problem with that. And like white people don't want to talk about their past and what have you. Like I didn't do that, and I didn't have slavery, but you benefiting. And from a Black point of view, I feel these Black organizations, you're benefiting. And you Black companies that are MBE certified, you're benefiting. And you're not giving it back to the community. The only thing you're doing is taking advantage of what I would say your Blackness. And I had gotten a conversation just before you came on uh, about this. And I feel that Black businesses, they don't really see what their fiduciary responsibility is to Black press.
Definitely. I mean, I think that there's some, like we've worked with like I mentioned, the Equal Minded Cafe, the Black owned cafe out here, and I know that they have definitely been like very supportive of us, and there's a few others, but I think there are definitely Black businesses who more or less are just focused on making money pretty much, which is unfortunate. So
And then let me tell you this: I got some feedback on what I said about putting them businesses out of business, and and they was like, we have enough of this in our community, this disunity and this and that. I'm like, I got to talk what's real, and those Black newspapers are not serving our community with once a month and or once a week or every 2 weeks. I'm not saying that it's not needed, but I'm saying how. And then they tell me, Ryan, about my approach, and I'm like, you've done your homework with Black intellectuals and what have you. And I was telling them, I don't forgot which intellectual I was listening to. They was like, you think you can talk to the system or these Europeans a certain way, all nice. You can dress all nice, you know. John T. Malloy, dress for success. And that's what they give you. If you do all of these different things, you be successful. You're stupid if you think that, you know, and I'm like, I'm coming to you straight. And either you like it or you don't. I don't care because, and I say this in all humility, I feel I'm like Zuckerberg or Elon Musk. I own this and I do what I want with it. You don't even try to help support it. So don't try to come and tell me how to run it. Don't try to tell me what I should be telling my community. And as I said, for boy, young Turks like you, young warriors like you, it's more, you need more finances, you need more people that are committed. And I don't think that they have to be black, white, or whatever. If they're committed to the program, that's where I'm at. People be like, you all black. Yeah, I'm all black. But I want genuine support. And if you can't give that, hey, tough. I'm off my high horse. What do you got to say?
No, I mean, I agree. I think, yeah, I mean, I think people don't understand how difficult it is to run an organization. Like when I first started the Defender, I was still living with my parents, and I didn't have like we're a nonprofit, and I didn't have any understanding of how nonprofits work. I didn't know anything about business. I didn't know anything about philanthropy, how to do grant writing. There's just like all this information that especially Black people, like we don't have as much access. And I'm speaking as somebody who went to college, which a lot of people like Black people don't have that. And so I'm privileged in the sense I was able to go to college, and I still had zero knowledge of like a majority of what was needed to be able to start a news organization. And so I think, and even beyond that, just like learning how to become sustainable, which we're still not super sustainable, honestly. Like we're on the path to becoming a sustainable organization in terms of financially, but uh yeah, like most of us don't have access to capital, access to resources and people in order to be able to run our organization. So that's the first piece. But secondly, I think uh yeah, like we're able to do what we do. Number one, we don't accept any corporate funding from corporations, which already, again, if you compare us to like the Star or Fox 4 or anybody else, that puts us like immediately a step behind them because they can just pretty much accept money from any of these advertisers who want to advertise with them. Whereas we're very selective about who we advertise and make sure that it aligns with our values and our mission. And so that's why we are like we're
It's
very
hard.
reliant. Yeah. And we're very reliant on individual donations from people in the community. And the other reason that we rely on that is because even though we do get grants and grant funding, we also don't want to become beholden to the foundations and to the people who are giving us like major gifts and grants, because then they can kind of start to control if we're too reliant on them. They can try to tell us don't publish that radical article, militant article about Black militancy or something like that. So,
Ryan, did you notice that on all our platforms, did you see any advertisement?
nope.
That's why. You know, and uh what you you have to be able to sustain what you're doing, and you do that through your personal dedication and your work hours. HR is what you're strong on, that you don't have to spend money. You put countless hours in that you're not really being paid for to produce all of this. I know that's what I have to do. It's not like we broke, but if everything had to be paid for, I told somebody I got probably about a $4 million in time in what I'm doing. You know, these interviews. I'm not. You don't get paid, and then it's a slow process with our community understanding. Last but least, you see how you thought you knew what we did until I took you on that tour, and most of us in today's busy lifestyle, we make bad choices on what we should spend our time on, educating ourselves so that we can move to the next level. And as you've seen, Cascade Media, we just don't cover subjects. We have tabs that are specifically dedicated to politics to education to health and wellness. And there's a whole lot of information on there that probably could save you money, probably could save you time, and most likely, when you see an interview like with that we're doing right now, change your perception of an organization or a person, and hopefully lights a spark. Uh, because uh, Auntie Maxine Waters, when they were all saying, "What a good job you're doing, Auntie," and all of that, Maxine said, "Nah, you need to get in the fight." And that's what I'm saying to our viewership. What do you have to say in closing?
I just have a lot of respect for you because I know how hard it is to start to do Black news and to be doing it for a long time. And especially like you were saying, without getting any, especially not getting much financial reward or anything like that. So I just wanted to say I appreciate you for doing that for our community and being true to what you set out to do. So,
Well, it all comes with the life experience because I tell everybody I've like went to college, black college, but ex drug dealer basically, and uh, when I look at my life and when I woke up, I seen, yeah, I had choices, but I didn't have choices. They have all this materialistic stuff in front of me in the media and what have you. I want to have it like the next person. But the avenues that they provide for you to do it, getting in the streets was the easiest one. And then when I finally woke up, I'm like, look what you did to your community. But I don't blame it on all on me because it's almost like the Matrix. You're programmed, and for you, what I try to tell our audience, you are not your programmed audience, and until you try to deprogram yourself, you have to be looking at information that's different from what the major media is feeding you. And you have to sit down and say, hey, what sources are giving me information that's concerning with my problem, not the world's problem, but what's going on in our community. And I applaud you, uh, as I told you, man, meeting you the other day and how intelligent you I kept saying how ecstatic and happy I was about all of this partnership. So without further ado, as we always say in closing, when you invest in your community, you're really just investing in yourself. Good night.
Program is brought to you by the Kansas City Business Association.